Right now, at the exact moment you're watching this, something unprecedented is unfolding beneath the surface of global markets. December 11th, 2025 silver prices have reportedly blasted past $63 per ounce, levels unseen in modern financial history. Analysts are calling it a 113% surge in barely 12 months, but I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't a hype-driven commodity rally. This is strategic, calculated, intentional, because when I studied the historical patterns behind events like this, I found three nearly identical situations spaced across centuries. Different nations, different time periods, same chain reaction, and every single time, the dominant global power was already in decline. That's why what's happening right now feels different. The pattern is repeating. And today, I'm going to walk you through what I believe China quietly executed on October 30th. Why it matters to your everyday life, even if you've never bought an ounce of silver. And the three critical developments you must understand before January 1st, which is just 3 weeks away. Before we begin, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I'm not affiliated with anyone mentioned. This is educational analysis based entirely on publicly available information. Now let's break down what reportedly happened. China's silent move, October 30th, 2025. In late October, multiple trade reports indicated that China's Ministry of Commerce had introduced new export control measures on silver. Starting January 1st, silver exports will reportedly require government approval, strict licensing requirements, and new national security reviews. My interpretation: China just positioned itself as the gatekeeper of global silver distribution, and the market reacted instantly. Reports show Shanghai silver inventories fell nearly 40% in 3 weeks. Physical premiums inside China exploded. Some sources claim Chinese buyers are paying $108 to $128 per ounce for physical silver, almost double the global spot price. That is not retail panic. That is anticipatory accumulation. Meanwhile, Western mints are reporting complete sellouts. London Metal Exchange inventories have reportedly hit multi-year lows. And major institutional players, big banks, sovereign funds, industrial giants are demanding physical delivery, not paper contracts. According to several analysts, these orders total roughly 350 million ounces, more than the estimated entire annual global surplus. That alone should alarm you. Why this matters to you, personally, even if you've never touched precious metals, your life is built on silver. Your smartphone contains about 0.5 grams. Electric vehicles use 25 to 50 grams each. A single solar panel uses around 20 grams. And the biggest shock? AI data centers, the same ones powering ChatGPT and every major AI breakthrough, are among the largest silver consumers in modern technology. Each server reportedly relies on silver-coated components for heat dissipation and ultra-fast connectivity. Some forecasts suggest the AI boom could consume 200 million ounces of silver by 2030. And defense? Missiles, radar, satellites, targeting systems, all heavily reliant on silver. The U.S. military alone reportedly consumed 15 million ounces in 2024. Yet the United States produces only about 14% of its own silver supply. The remaining 86%? Imported. Now here's the twist almost nobody talks about. China doesn't mine the most silver. They produce only about 6% of global mine output. But they dominate the refining process. They turn raw ore into the high-purity silver required for electronics, solar, EVs, AI, medical tech, aerospace, and military systems. Or at least, they did, until 3 weeks ago. And that, in my analysis, is where the historical pattern begins. The 4-stage pattern I found. Every major resource power shift I studied follows the same 4-stage structure. Stage 1. Dependency. A dominant nation builds everything. Its tech, its military, its economy around a single crucial resource, assuming supply is endless. Stage 2. Weaponization. The supplier nation realizes its leverage. Restrictions begin quietly. Delays, quotas, administrative reviews. Stage 3. Crisis. Prices skyrocket. Production slows, and the dependent nation scrambles for alternatives, but too late. Stage 4. Realignment. Industrial power shifts. Currency influence weakens. A new global order forms. And in my view, we are already in Stage 3. To understand how serious this moment is, you need to see how this pattern played out before and how it reshaped entire civilizations. A historical mirror, Britain versus Germany in the late 1800s. Britain was the world's industrial superpower. They controlled roughly 60% of global manufacturing, and the Royal Navy dominated global trade routes. But almost their entire industrial machine depended on one thing: German steel. For decades, the relationship was stable. Germany supplied steel. Britain built the ships, the machines, the weapons. But around 1890, Germany began introducing delays. Not embargoes, just extended inspections, new regulations, slower shipments. Nothing that could provoke war, but enough to disrupt Britain's production schedules. The result? By 1900, steel prices had tripled. British factories missed deadlines. Shipyards stalled. Britain tried developing domestic steel production, but it was too late. Then came World War I. Germany's earlier control of steel allowed them to outproduce Britain in artillery, weaponry, submarines, everything. Britain survived the war, yes, but they never regained their industrial dominance. By 1945, the United States had replaced them as the leading global power. Same pattern, different resource. Same outcome. China learned this lesson the hard way. Back in the early 1800s, China was the world's largest economy. They produced the goods the world wanted: tea, silk, porcelain, and demanded payment strictly in silver. By around 1830, China had reportedly absorbed half of global silver production. Britain was bleeding silver. Their reserves were collapsing. Their solution? Not diplomacy, opium. They flooded China with opium from India, forcing silver to flow back toward Europe. When China resisted, the Opium Wars began. China lost. They were forced to open ports, surrender Hong Kong, and accept a century of Western dominance. China never forgot this humiliation. They studied it for generations. And now, almost 200 years later, they appear to be positioning themselves on the opposite side of that historical equation. They control the refining, the choke point of the entire supply chain. And the West, especially the United States, appears to have realized this too late. Why I believe we're now in Stage 3. Here's the evidence that stands out most. The U.S. officially designated silver as a critical mineral in 2025. Global silver deficits are estimated at 800 million ounces. 5 straight years of shortages. Around 70% of silver is only produced as a byproduct of other mining operations, meaning production cannot simply scale when demand spikes. Solar, EVs, medical tech, defense systems, all accelerating silver consumption at unprecedented levels. Industry analysts are forecasting a 200 million ounce deficit in 2025. Equivalent to roughly 15% of global demand simply not being available. And with current prices around $62, $63, banks like Deutsche Bank and Bank of America publicly forecast $65 by 2026. But privately, some analysts whisper about $75 to $100 per ounce if China continues enforcing restrictions. Not in a decade, within 18 months. So what happens next? My 3 final takeaways. 1. Understand the timeline. China's new export controls take effect January 1st, barely 3 weeks away. If China follows through, prices could break $70 by March, possibly faster. 2. Watch the divergence. Physical silver in China is already selling for double the paper price. That gap signals a widening disconnect between futures markets and physical reality. When Western markets correct, the adjustment could be violent and sudden. 3. Pay attention to the next 90 days if China fully enforces these controls. If inventories continue falling, if allied nations begin stockpiling, then the window for easy solutions closes. At that point, in my view, the world is locked into stage 3, and the historical pattern accelerates. Because here's the bigger picture. This isn't about silver. It's about testing the United States response. If Washington fails to react decisively, China's next moves could target rare earths, tungsten, antimony, cobalt, the backbone of 21st century technology. Silver might only be the opening move. China spent 2 centuries watching Western nations dominate the world through resource control. Now they seem to be reversing the dynamic methodically, strategically, and at a moment when the U.S. supply chains stretch thinner than ever. An estimated 800 million ounces missing. 4 historical stages. We appear to be in the 3rd. The pattern looks familiar. The timeline is compressing. The only question left is whether people see it happening in real time. Final message. End of video. In my next analysis, I'll break down which industries I believe will be hit first, which companies may survive the coming supply crunch, and what institutional players are reportedly doing right now behind the scenes. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because January 1st is only 3 weeks away, and in my view, this story is just beginning.